Okay, since we have quorum, we're going to call the meeting to order. For the last time, for section 2 here, public input is for the purpose of permitting people in the gallery to provide input shall be no longer than 30 minutes unless approved by a majority vote of council. Each speaker may provide respectful comment on any topic they deem appropriate and not necessarily on the topic on the agenda of the meeting. The public input opportunity is meant to put input to questions and answers. Each speaker may not speak longer than 2 minutes, but may have a second opportunity if time permits. Each speaker must not be allowed to speak in regards to a bylaw in respect of which a public hearing has been held. For the record, they would state their name and address. So recommended resolution that the public input section be moved to the end of the agenda after public question period. To have a motion, please.
I so move.
Second.
I'll second that.
I guess
Discussion?
we're going to be a team tonight, Tom.
Sorry?
I guess we're going to be a team tonight, Tom.
That's right.
You are. Any discussion? No? Okay. Opposed? Hearing none. Motion carried. The introduction of the late item will be moved into staff reports. Do I have a resolution to move that to staff reports? Pardon me.
Yeah.
We'll wait until we get to the agenda part. I apologize. The approval of the agenda. So with an amendment that the staff report, the late item, be moved to staff reports and the agenda for the regular council meeting for May 4th, 2021 be adopted. Do I have a motion, please?
I move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Minutes of previous meeting. Recommended resolution that the minutes from the regular council meeting that was held on April 20th, 2021 be adopted. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second?
Second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Petition delegations. Hi, Chris, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Good. We have Corporal Chris McMillan, RCMP, quarterly report discussion. The floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and ladies and gentlemen. You should have a copy of the policing report to the end of March 31st, and also the plan for the year, so to speak, our annual performance plan, APP.
Thank you.
Have you all had a chance to review the policing report?
I
Yes.
have. Yeah.
Yes.
A couple of concerns there that don't really pop out too much are the two fatals we had. And again, I'm speaking on broad terms here. They happened on the highway. We did have two fatals, one early January and one early February. But they're not scored as a death because they're scored as an unspecified assist because North Island Traffic takes the conduct of the investigation. A fatality on a highway would overload us quite quickly from a manpower perspective. So you don't see those. They don't show up very well, and neither does the homicide, unfortunately, again, because Vancouver Island Major Crime took the investigative authority over that one.
Okay.
The other one that's a bit skewed is the sexual assault / interference. Those were actually, they didn't occur in Seywards area. They're all assist files, assisting another investigation somewhere else, which means there could have been a witness, there could have been a victim maybe here or so on, but the event did not occur in the Seywards area. So they're all three were assist files. Up a little bit, up 6 files from the same time last year. I noticed in the last bit traffic is way down on the highway. 32 written warnings, 59 violation tickets. Again, we're still challenged like everyone else is, COVID interaction, and it's very difficult. I don't like policing this way. It's tough not to be able to speak in person at times, but we have to do what we have to do. Again, 3 boat patrols. Weather in the wintertime here on the water is a challenge and a good day. Recently got a new clerk, Colleen, who is here for about 2 years. She moved over to a integrated road safety position in Campbell River. And we now have Jill Nouveau. Her husband's a sergeant in the RCMP, and she's up here 2-3 days a week and works from home the other 2-3 days a week, depending how it falls out.
Okay, good.
Any discussion on the last 3 months?
One thing I have a question on is the check stop program. Is that non-existent because of COVID?
I just did one last week.
Oh,
I was waiting for some negative comments on Facebook. We've been asked to scale back a bit, but at the same time, don't stop. It's situational. It's community by community. I want to do them, but yet I notice at times we should be doing them, and I know some people complain about them, but almost every time we do them, and I think I'm batting 1,000 right now, we find somebody who shouldn't be driving, is not allowed to drive, or doesn't have insurance, or somehow shouldn't be in a motor vehicle on the road. And every time we get somebody. And it's not the target, it's more about education, enforcement. So I'm gonna start ramping those up a little bit, and lack of a good term, choke points. There's no real good ones in town. They're better out in the valley. From a police perspective, you want them past the point of no return, so they can't turn around on you. So yes, we're 0 for the last quarter, but we did one last week, and we will bring that up. And one more comment, Constable Viette is due to rotate out in June or so this year, and we are soliciting, researching for a new member. So we will see a change of staffing, just not sure when that's going to happen yet.
but you're up to all 3 members right now.
Yes.
You? Okay.
And we're bringing some additional forces in. You'll see another gentleman here this weekend. He is a impaired investigator, drugs or alcohol. And that's his background. So we're bringing in a specialized unit for about 6 days, 5 days. But he'll also work the highway, keeping in mind that from a traffic perspective, 95% of our work, lack of a good term, is on the highway.
Sorry, Anne, you are CAO, pardon me, you have a question?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. It's a question through the chair to Corporal McMillan. I'm just wondering if it's possible, based on the information you just provided on the sexual assaults being an assist, if it would be possible to maybe revise the report and show like maybe a little A beside each of those items, and then have a bit of a footnote to say what that means. I think it's important because, as you know, we're doing our community plan right now, and we've got a household survey out. We've had a tremendous response. So many citizens identified how much they value safety in the community, and this gives a little bit of a false impression. So I just wondered if it would be possible for you to distinguish between assists and actual events.
Totally agree, totally understand. And honestly, when I was looking at the report about half an hour ago, I just about had a bird when I realized we had 3 sexual assaults here. And I actually pulled up the whole spreadsheet on the other screen here and realized they were all assist files. So I was like, oh, okay, we're okay. Yes, in the future, we will somehow, and keep in mind that my brand new clerk, great lady, this is her first production of a report for us. We can fine tune it and we'll make it better for the next quarter.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Tinsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one quick question around the checks for well-being. It's one of the things, 3 in the village, 8 rural. Are they related to perhaps seniors or drug related, or maybe you could describe a little more? Thank you.
Almost all are senior related. I would say senior, no drugs. Very few drug reports or files here. But a majority of, hey, I haven't talked to my mom in a couple of weeks. She's not answering the phone. She's 89, lives out in the valley. Or my son walked to his friend's place, but now he's not home.
Right.
Not a missing category. Just go check on him for me, please. To make sure he's okay.
Great, thank you.
So a majority, unfortunately, are seniors and people trying to get hold of them via telephone.
So I'm sorry, I can't find my hand.
Councillor Paulson.
Put my real one up. We used to have a COPS program in Sayward, and
Yes.
it was really well supported. And as time went on, it dwindled away to I think I think now there's just a couple of people that still do random patrols and things around. When I came home from Campbell River today, I noticed for the first time in a long time that there was a cop's a speed check, just across from the Ford dealership. And I was wondering if something like revitalizing the COPS program and having the traffic checks on the highway, and because that made me slow down for sure. And you know, I think it has an effect on a lot of drivers when they see your speed blinking at you. So I hope sometime in the future we'll be able to revitalize that COPS program and get more traffic stops too. Like even on Sayward Road, there's a lot of speeding. I notice, and thanks to you, I slow down at the one-way bridge because you know people have driven that for so long that they don't realize that the speed drops down to 40 from 70. So it's a real eye-opener to get a finger shaking and a reminder that, you know, there is traffic zones and they need to be obeyed. So
like for the COPS program, we've received direction not to bring volunteers in based on the COVID situation.
Oh, absolutely.
As soon as that COVID is stood down and we can get the COPS up, I can get funding through ICBC safety program for speed boards, checks. My pet peeve here is the 30 zone in front of the office in the school. I might have a bit of a red face. That's because I rode my mountain bike all the way to the end of the old bridge on Sayward Road, out past the highway and back. And people don't realize who I am. And some of the white trucks heading home from the water taxis are a little quicker than 70K. So,
yeah.
And ironically, there are some locals involved in the speeding on the 70K zone too.
Yeah.
So
I think we can all be.
Yes, I could probably agree with that.
Yeah.
So it is a priority, the speed on the 70K. Sometimes I wish it was 60. That's my own issue. Today I was out in the 80K zone. I didn't get down to Elk Creek and I had 3 tickets and they were all 25 plus over the speed limit. So you're going to see more focus from us on the highway, in particular in 80K zone, particularly when kids are getting picked up by the bus, dropped off by the bus.
Yeah.
I can lean a little more lenient on the 90K south and 100 north, but I'm holding them to the 80K in that zone in 70K and the 40K by the bridge, which a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea, and it fits right in with your annual performance plan. Number 1, enhance public safety.
Yes.
So thank you.
Does anybody else have anything for Constable McMillan? No?
Do we want to, are you satisfied with the annual performance plan? Is there anything else? Does council want to discuss on their own and get back to me? We don't have we're required to bring domestic violence in. That's a provincial priority. Our domestic violence here is extremely low. I think we had a couple 3 files in the last year. You know, again, enhanced public safety, and it rolls into the road safety, which is that side of the public safety. From the Indigenous side with the community, we don't have any populated Indigenous reserves here. We have reserves, but we don't have any populated youth. But again, we're sort of held back right now because of COVID. Visibility, we're out there. We are going to bring more boat-based checks in this year, more checks at the A, I was going to do it anyways. B, because that boat sank out there a couple weeks ago off of Fanny Island, and it was an 18-footer, and it was a day I would not even go out in the water with my boat, which is 18 feet. And nobody wanted to come talk to us about it either. So I find that, we're going to step up our enforcement of the Small Vessel Act at the dock. On the water, it's very tough to do. It's tough to engage people, write a ticket, ask their names and phone numbers when boats are bouncing up and down. It's easier to find out who the driver is or going to be going out on the water and establish their safety gear, vessel registration, plates are insured, so on and so forth. And I can't think of much else. Any comments, any concerns, feedback?
I have something. I'm just wondering about the school program where each June we've had the bike rodeo at the school, and it didn't happen last year and doesn't look like it's going to happen again this year, but the clerk was very involved in getting funding and
We've got money sitting in the bank.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as soon as I'm allowed to engage youth and get out there, we'll do it. We're pushing a bit more on the check stops and what have you, because there's at times a bit of a criminal element behind the check stops and engaging the public at those, or criminal code or motor vehicle act, which are a bit more serious. They're asking, we're being sort of directed to minimize our contact with children as much as possible. So as soon as I can get it out there, there's Cops for Cancer that stood down. The Wounded Warrior Run was stood down. The bike rodeos are stood down. So yes, I will as soon as we're allowed to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much for giving us the report tonight, Chris. Appreciate that.
All right, and
Yeah,
please, for
okay.
everybody, just stop by, questions, concerns, personal or professional. I'm always around. I go home every second or third block back to Comox, but my wife and kids are coming up here more now than I anticipated they would. So we're almost moving in, but we can't.
There we go.
Okay, well, you have a good night. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye now. Okay, so we're going to do a recommended resolution that the delegation by Constable Chris McMillan and Sayward be received. Do I have a motion? Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. Next, we have Alex Turner regarding the internet service on Highway 19.
Hello.
Good afternoon, Alex. Welcome.
Hi.
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mark. Of course, I'm here in regard to internet service on Highway 19. And I come specifically with 4 asks of you this evening. The first one, and I think probably the most important, is for you directly, Mark. I was talking with Dave Leach at the Regional District, and he told me that tomorrow you will be on a conference call with other mayors and others on the North Island. Is that correct?
I'll have to double check.
Yeah, I think
one of us will be on there.
Eh?
One of us will be on there.
Yes. Well, so my ask is that I believe electronic services are a topic for that that conference call, and I'm hoping that yourself or whoever else is on that would give special emphasis to this and try to encourage conversation around this particular topic of getting service right up and down the highway, right up to Port Hardy. So that's my first ask. The other 3 are all letters that I would ask the council to write in regard to this particular issue. The first is to TELUS, to Rajwant Gill, who is the contact person for TELUS on this file, writing to him in a positive vein, perhaps asking what the village might do to assist TELUS in bringing about this service. So, just asking them, is there something we can do to help you out to make this happen for the people in Sayward and the other parts of the North Island? So that's the second ask. The next one is also a letter that would be to the Minister of Citizen Services in Victoria, Lisa Bear. I think you might have in hand from her a very encouraging letter on this topic. And I think a letter to her emphasizing how concerned we are on this particular issue. And the last one would be a similar letter to our MLA, Michelle Babchuk. So those are the things. I'll come back to those at the end. my involvement in this whole thing is basically in support of tourism. I'm concerned about the safety concerns on the highway, but the way I came to this was research that I did in assistance to the tourism committee. I've really determined from what I've been able to learn that electronic service is really the future of tourism anywhere in the world. And if we're to have high-end tourism here, the kind of tourism that provides meaningful jobs, we must be connected on the highway by cell phone. People traveling make their bookings on the road, and if they can't access the cell phone between, say, here and when they come off the ferry from Prince Rupert, they'll never know what's available in the Seward Valley. It's most essential to the development in terms of economic development here to be able to provide this infrastructure in support of the tourism industry. Is that some kind of a beep, a warning beep?
No.
No. Okay. I've spent 2 years working on this concern. Yesterday, I spent the full day on the telephone talking with people, waiting for people to call me back. And I might say, while I was talking with them, the golden crowned sparrows were out there eating up my garden. So a bit ironic, but I've talked recently in the last 2 days with Tom Yates at the Regional District, Dave Leach, also personally with Michelle Babchuk, with Howard Randall, who's the Executive Director of Network BC, and Mike Harmston in the financial section of the Regional District, trying to gather up all of the information I can on this. As a result of that, this morning I sent a letter to Rajwant Gill at TELUS, asking for his response around the need for the cell phone service on the highway. So at this point, I really feel I need your help here. I've been working on this for a while as a volunteer, and I need the muscle that our jurisdictions, our elected people, our councils will bring to this issue. So I think if we do a full press at this point, with everybody in the North Island working on this, I think we actually have a chance of success. Recently, cell phone service has been initiated for the area between Souk and Port Renfrew as a result of some funding available from the provincial government, and we need to press to become part of that process. So we want the minister to apply the money from Connect BC to help provide this service, and to urge our service providers to step up to the plate to help us out here. So if I just take a moment, I want to read from the letter, which I believe you have from the Minister Lisa Bear, the Minister of Citizen Services. And she says on the second page of the letter, a multi-pronged approach involving all levels of government is how we are collectively working on your behalf to expand connectivity throughout the province. Regional planning prepares districts to identify specific needs and work with internet service providers to submit applications, and so on. So she's suggesting that if we all work together here, which I think she's saying, if I hear from enough different places, it's going to make a difference. We need to make the wheel squeak here if we're going to have some success. So the asks that I alluded to at the beginning are for this to be discussed at the telephone conference tomorrow, and then the letter to Rajwant Gill of TELUS, and one to the minister and one to the MLA. Of course, there's endless other letters that can be written to the federal government, the CRTC. The list is really quite endless, but I think if we could get focus on those 4 asks, I think you could help move this along.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Appreciate you being here tonight.
All right.
Okay, take care, Alan.
Thank
you.
We could have some questions. Nope.
Hey,
So-
questions?
Do we have, are we having any questions, or?
I'd love to answer some questions. I've tried to keep
And
this
Councillor Polson?
as brief as
Yes.
I can.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just wondering, when you read that part, Alex, from the letter from Lisa Bear, have you say you had contact from Dave Leach and Tom Yates and Mark Hampston? I can't remember the name of Howard that you said.
Howard Rendell, he's
Rendell.
actually the telephone contact that was in the letter from the minister. He's
Okay.
the executive director of Network BC, and he did call me back this afternoon.
So when we're looking at the notice at the bottom there, where it's in that paragraph where it says you can contact Gerald Wally, have you been able to have any feedback from him on this latest?
Well, not really. You know, I phoned Gerald, I guess 2 weeks ago, maybe now, and asked for his help around this. And his response was, I think he said, maybe it's time for you to make another appearance before the regional board. So he kind of punted it back to me. And honestly, I'm willing to do that. You know, I just have to sign up, but I wanted to get this meeting done first. I think, you know, there's some interesting technical questions to be answered in terms of the fiber cable that goes up the island. We need to know where the connectivity nodes are on that. That's something I learned today talking with Howard Rendell. Those are the places where you can actually connect on without spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that might be something that would be discussed in the telephone conference tomorrow.
Okay, that's great. I'd just like to acknowledge all of the hard work and the time and the effort that you've put into this, not just over the last 2 years, but I think it's going on more like 4 years. And the wheels turn very slowly, but you are accomplishing things. And I know you've worked with the previous councils on getting this brought forward and involving the mayors in the North Island too, and had lots of support from that way. So
yes, they've heard from me up there, and I've met with a number of the people on council up on the North Island on this particular issue.
And they're also part of the SRD, as well as Mount Waddington being separate, but it's another region too. But I just want to thank you for all of the work that you've done. And it seems like nothing ever gets done, nothing ever moves. But I think this letter from Lisa Bear was very encouraging. And I just want to thank you for doing all that work on behalf of the citizens of the village and the valley.
Well, I appreciate that, Sue. You know, I must say that talking with Howard Rendell and Dave Leach, they mentioned how your husband, John, had brought this forward at the UBCM on a number of occasions. So, you know, we have worked together on this.
Okay, now we can pass the torch to Mayor Baker.
I think what we should do from here is bring this back to the next council meeting for discussion, so we could do a resolution on getting a letter together, because that's the way it has to be done. Is that not correct?
Well, that would be satisfactory.
Okay.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
You know, I think the letters need be quite persuasive. And if there's anything I can do to assist in that process, I'd be happy to help out.
Okay. Well, thanks very much for being here tonight, Alex.
You're welcome, Mark. Thanks for your time too.
Thanks. Take care now.
Righto.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So CAO, if we can bring that together for the next council meeting and pass a resolution to draft a letter and have it sent forth on behalf of the village.
Three.
Thank you, Mayor. I wonder, would it be better if I
Three
brought,
letters.
if I brought the actual letters back?
Sure,
For council to look at?
sure. You're right.
Yep.
That would be much better.
Yeah, move the process faster.
Mhm.
I'll work with Alex on those letters so that he has a chance to put them.
Perfect. Thank you. So we need a recommended resolution that Alex Turner Internet Service on Highway 19, that the delegation by Alex Turner be received. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second? Second?
Could we just have a correction? I think instead of internet service, it should be cell service. That's what he's,
Okay,
in his letter, he says
cell service.
regarding highway cell service.
So, but that doesn't need a resolution on that. We'll just put it as cell service.
Yeah, okay.
And that the delegation from Alex Turner be received. So I need a second. Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Tinsley?
I just wanted to add that that seems to me to be the clear, how can I describe it? Slowness of the process. We're talking about cell service. We're not talking about this fiber, the whole meal. That's all we're talking about. And from Campbell to Sayward, that's a huge thing. If we can just get that as a start, we appreciate everything else, but that seems to be the clear thing. The internet and the fiber cable gets mixed up with everything else. So this is a very basic thing, just cell towers and cell access. So that's my 2 bits.
Okay, thank you.
And another point, if I can just suggest to the CAO that the letter focus also firstly on the safety aspect of having cell service rather than tourism, because right now the way tourism has gone and what's available in Sayward is pretty negligible. It may improve in the future, but I think safety and driving in bad conditions and accidents and reporting sicknesses or whatever as you're traveling is a #1 priority. And the tourism certainly is important, but at this point I would say it's secondary to the safety.
I think we're going to get more movement by government if we attack it by the safety aspect. And the
Okay.
people that have been injured, and like that one gentleman that was in there for 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that is that's going to get more teeth.
Yeah.
Okay. So opposed.
Did you want to say something, Tom?
Well, I was just going to add,
Oh.
and with the increasing traffic, I don't know whether everyone else has noticed, but there's more and more traffic going back and forth just between here and Campbell River. So it includes everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Opposed? Hearing none. Carried. Correspondence. So we're going to have from A to F. Correspondence be received. I would like to pull D, the dust control.
Okay.
Would anybody else like to pull any letters? Councillor Polson?
I'm just looking at the, it's under A, the 1, 2, 3 letters that have been forwarded from the Citizens for Quality Healthcare, and that's basically all of those letters have gone to the hospital board. So I think we could receive them, and more information will be coming forward from the hospital board as those issues are addressed.
Okay. So in terms of D, the request for citizens for dust control, did everybody read their information?
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, we're going to be having a conversation with WFP regarding the OCP, which is a good tie-in for us to have the opportunity to have some open dialogue with them. It is something that is, of course, their responsibility and that they should be doing. And I don't believe, like, I mean, our public works guys are not going to borrow their water truck and go down the road. And that's not what I'm suggesting, but I'm sure that they have the ability to do it themselves. And I think it's important for us as the local government to bring this forward to WFP, because it can be very daunting for one person or a couple of people to talk to such a major company. And sometimes maybe the ears aren't as, it's better off sometimes with the municipality doing the introduction to the issue. Councillor Tinsley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering why couldn't we just receive the letter? And my understanding would be is then we would be deciding on next steps relative to what the letter brings forward. One of my concerns, we receive a number of letters, the ones Councillor Paulson cited at the beginning, and we're receiving them, but we're kind of in the background. And when we receive all these, we have to then choose, in my opinion, whatever they are, if we're going to take further action. And that's where I'm unclear on.
Okay, yeah, I'm unclear as well.
Yeah, so how people who have written these, some are quite clear, as the Councillor Paulson ones, but some are like, okay, so we've received it, but what would be our next step? How are we responding to that? Is that going on an agenda for the next meeting? Is that, okay.
From what I understand, unless it's pulled for discussion or brought to discuss for the next meeting, we have to pull it. Otherwise, it's just received and read by council. Is that not correct, CAO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it would make sense to receive the correspondence, and then once it's received, pull the ones that have further action that councillors want to take action on. Some of them will have resolutions included within them, like I think the letters from the College of Physicians and Surgeons, the one that Councillor Paulson referenced, they had some suggestions, and often, like for example, the last meeting, there was the request for council to support the Wolf moratorium. So sometimes they include right in their letters what they're asking is. And then other times, like for example, the request from the citizens, they've left it, they've identified some things they'd like done, and it's up to council to choose next steps. So receiving the letters first makes sense, and then pulling out after that for further discussion. And then council can decide on a resolution at that time, or yeah, that's the best way I think to do it.
Thank you. So recommended resolution that correspondence A to F be received. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. So go back to the letters. You had a question or a comment, Councillor Paulson?
No, I got so interested in what CAO was saying that I forget what it is, so I turned my hand off. Sorry.
Okay, that's all good. So what letters would you, council, like to see pulled for further discussion or for resolution on the next meeting? We should discuss the Truck Loggers Association fee. Dues.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry, the letters from the College of Physician and Surgeon. Is there anything you want to see there, Councillor Paulson?
I think there'll be further information coming from the ongoing hospital board reports that I bring up, because all of these letters concern a service being withdrawn from Comox and Campbell River that was guaranteed to stay with those two hospitals forever, and now they've been moved to Victoria, and the funding has been taken with them. So the hospital board is working diligently to try and get those services returned to the communities. So I'll have more information after the next hospital board meeting.
Thank you. And do we want to bring forward any resolution going forward talking to WFP regarding the dust control, or is that just something Do we need a resolution for that, CAO?
It depends what you want to do with it. But if you have an action item, then it would be in the resolution. So anything follow up. If you,
So would it be moved to the next, like, for consideration at the next meeting, right? We're saying, here's an
well,
action
I mean,
item.
I think unless council needs more time, council could decide what they want to do now. There's,
Okay,
there's a couple of options you've talked about, so we could put that into a resolution for next steps.
Okay, can we do that, please?
So what I heard was to meet with Western Forest Products to discuss it. I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, to have a dialogue with whether it be perhaps sending a letter on behalf of the town or the village, pardon me, saying what the concern was, and then do they have anything on their list? Perhaps they just haven't got to it yet because of all the rain. Is it something they plan on doing? Does that sound fair to council?
Yeah, I think it sounds fair if we ask them to discuss and come up with some solutions that will satisfy both the WFP and the residents so that we maintain our positive relationship with them.
Yep, sounds good. Does that sound good to you, Councillor Tinsley?
yes, thank you.
Okay. So of all the correspondence, those are the only ones that we wanted to discuss? CAO?
Thank you. Just on that last item, so would the resolution be council direct staff to return to the May 18th meeting with a draft letter to forward complaints from the citizens
Sure.
to Western Forest?
Please, sorry, I forgot
Not
that.
necessarily, not forward the complaints, but rather to bring forward the concern to Western Forest Products for further
Yes.
discussion.
Do I have a recommended resolution on that, please? Need a motion?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, resolution carried. Council reports. We have none. Report on committees? None. Mayor report? None. I had a 2-day conference with LGM, and it was some really good information. I guess the best thing about it was to connect with people from Nova Scotia. Mayors from there were on the call, as well as from Yorkton, Saskatchewan, and then of course throughout BC. And the one thing that we found is everybody is really having the same common issue, regardless on where you live, and how COVID has impacted every community, and the steps and things that each individual communities are doing for it, especially the larger communities, and also them dealing with the homeless and opioid issues that they're having. So all that was good information. Thank you. CAO?
Sorry, I don't have anything to add. Did I have my hand up?
Yes. There we go. Okay, thank you. Unfinished business? None. Staff reports. The monthly rolling spreadsheet. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. So this is the first of our rolling spreadsheets that we discussed a few council meetings ago, which was intended to give council and citizens an update on current initiatives and important projects for the village, as well as there's an appendix to that which shows resources that have been allocated for specific items and where we're at with the purchase of those items. And I think what staff or what council had asked us to do is to have this on our new website, which we will have, but also to bring it forth at the first of the month to each council meeting. So we'll be providing this on a regular basis as a rolling spreadsheet, assuming that it contains all the information that council wants.
It does. I think it looks great. Thank you. Thank you to the staff.
Yes, thank you.
So we have a recommended resolution that council receive the monthly rolling spreadsheet and current initiatives.
I'll move that.
And I'll
Second,
second.
discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. B, procedure amendment bylaw number 471. Public feedback. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. So you'll remember that at the April 20th council meeting, council took first and second and third reading of the proposed 471 bylaw, which is intended to amend the council procedures bylaw. And we're required by the community charter to advertise to citizens what the proposed changes are and to allow some time for feedback. We did receive feedback from at least one citizen. Actually, a couple of citizens mentioned this to me anecdotally or verbally. We didn't receive anything in writing, but in both instances, it was a query as to why the question period was moved to the end. And so we had a little discussion about that. I think people were satisfied that this would allow for a voice, but wanted to make sure that the agenda was posted well enough in advance of the meeting so that there could be time for citizens to contact yourselves with any questions to discuss things in advance of the meeting. So of course, staff endeavor to do that. We generally have the agenda prepared. It closes Wednesday at noon. And we have it posted often by Thursday, but always by Friday. So that gives citizens an opportunity to contact councillors with concerns they have about anything on the agenda. And that seemed to alleviate to some extent the concerns that by the citizen I spoke with at length on this, because it does provide an opportunity for them to understand why decisions are made. And of course, the charter allows for citizens to understand and listen, but not engage in the debate that council has in making its decisions. So that seemed to be acceptable to the citizen. That's the extent of the feedback we got, both verbal. So that's the report.
Thank you. So resolution that council receive the council procedure amendment bylaw for 471 2021 feedback report for information and discussion. Motion, please.
I'll move. Whoops.
Second,
Okay, I'll second it.
discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. And also C, virtual town hall meeting, the Village of Sayward OCP. CAO?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. So this is an idea that occurred because we got such a tremendous response on the surveys. We've had maybe as many as 40 responses, which is quite good for household surveys for an official community plan. It's quite a good percentage of a response. And there's some similar trends, which of course council will be meeting with the consultants to get the full assessment of that survey in terms of what they heard. Many of the responses were submitted directly to the consultants. And of course, some were dropped off here at the office. But given the widespread interest and the fact that we don't have an opportunity to really fully engage with citizens, it seemed to be an opportunity for another level of engagement for a virtual town hall, even for an hour, to allow people to participate as we are tonight on Teams, so that they can participate in a bit of a dialogue with council on issues that they'd like to bring up. And we have a couple of options in here. I thought it might be helpful to talk about the current zoning, which provides for secondary suites in the residential zone. It's a tremendous opportunity for the village to increase housing opportunities and for individuals to assist with as a mortgage assist or, as a revenue build. Of course, that would lead to the whole concept of Airbnb use, which is a whole other discussion, but these are important discussions because if they're not discussed, the community kind of grows like a weed in a garden without any real discussion. And so this allows for the community to express their interests on how they'd like to see future growth. And with this current provision in the zoning bylaw and with no regulations to prohibit Airbnb or enable, it is sort of an unmentioned subject which takes its own route. So it's an opportunity to talk about that. And I've asked the building inspector to sit in for a portion of the meeting so that he could give a little overview in general terms of what they look for when they work with a citizen who's putting a secondary suite in their property. So it just gives an idea of the sorts of things that people might look at. Of course, he would have to do, and any building inspector would have to be present to look at the property, but there's some, just that it's really a general discussion. And then a second item for discussion could be residential occupancy of recreational vehicles. That's also provided for the zoning bylaw. So they're just general topics that maybe allow for some discussion, but of course, citizens who join in the call may have their own items to talk to as well. So these are almost the spares that you have in case nobody has anything to say. Or icebreaker conversation topics, but you know, they are important topics because they can over time have a really positive impact on a community, or you know, sometimes they or change, and some people might not like the change, so it's worth having a conversation. And I realize that not everybody maybe has access to Teams. So that is a little bit of a problem, and I'm not quite sure what we can do about that, except it's possible that we could have enough time that we could find a way to help. But it's really the only thing we can do now with COVID. So it seemed like an opportunity to do that. And I was suggesting that we do it as a committee of the whole meeting on May 11th, so that we would advertise it, we would post it, we would be ready to accept people who want to join, and then send them the invite, as we do for all delegates. We send an invite to join the meeting, and they simply have to click on it on the email and then join the meeting. So that's what I'm proposing. And of course, I'd like to hear if council would like to see that, or see something like that, or something different, or not at all.
Councillor Tinsley?
Mic is off.
I think
Sorry,
you're
you're
muted.
The date was mentioned of May the 11th, and I
Yes.
thought we got a meeting invite for something on the 24th or 25th or
That's something different.
something different.
That's
Okay,
for council. Yeah.
okay, my apologies.
Okay.
Okay, I think it's a great idea. That's my bottom line. Yeah, it's great.
What do you think about going on? There's a program called WebEx. And if people do not have Teams or Zoom, and it's not something that has to be paid for by the municipality at all. It's a free program that I know that's being used for Census Canada right now. So that might open it up to more people, because not everybody has Microsoft Office.
Right.
So we could discuss that. Councillor Paulson, what do you think?
I think it's a great idea to have a town hall meeting. I know there's several different platforms that people use for having group meetings. So, you know, whatever would work best for everyone, I think, is what we should go with.
And what's free?
Well, Zoom is free.
Not for us, for that many, I don't think. And there's a time limit
Mm.
on it. So Zoom is a little trickier, where like WebEx, you can be on there for 8 hours. Not saying that we do that, but it's free, and you don't have to have Microsoft Office.
Okay.
Councillor Tinsley?
I just have a suggestion that, given that the time frame is so close,
Mhm.
I think we should just stick with what we know, and Microsoft Office, and do the best we can with that. And people who really want to do it will work it out. I think technology-wise, it's sometimes if we jump around too much, especially in this short time frame, it won't work out.
Okay. CEO?
Thank you. I tend to agree. I was a little nervous because there's so many things to think about with a lot of people to join on. We see, of course, Councillor Kirchner, he had some trouble tonight, and But we could look at the WebEx and try and explore that in time if we have a second or other subsequent meetings. That would be a good way to do that.
CFO.
CAO has, I guess the other thing I just add, the Zoom is an option too. We could purchase, I think it's about $200. And then everybody else can use it for free. We would have to pay though, and we can check on that as well for a subsequent one.
Okay, sorry, CFO, you have a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment about Teams. It is a free app, and you do not need Microsoft Office to use Teams. Anybody can download the app. You don't need Microsoft Office. So that's just something I wanted to mention.
Okay, thank you. There you go, Teams it is. So we need a recommended resolution that council receive the virtual town hall meeting Village of Sayward OCP report for information and discussion.
I'll move.
Motion. Second.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. D, water and sewer user fee exemptions. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item is relates to water, sewer, and user fee exemptions. It's important that we get this done now because the budget has to be, the financial plan has to be finished and reported on by May 15th. And of course, this is a component of that. So there are 3 resolutions here which support a number of water, sewer, and user fee exemptions or reductions that require council's review for this year. The first is the rental of the campground site by the nurse practitioner. It was approved by the council requiring it be revisited in July. So if we could do that now, we'll be set for our financial plan for this year. The second was an exemption for the Sabre Harbor Authority. And of course, there were conditions there, which are of course difficult with COVID, but that's something for council to look at. And I think there's a third resolution there with respect to the that staff direct staff to implement a user fee exemption. Basically what happened on that last one is that at a previous resolution, staff were directed to come back with an application process for user fee exemptions or reductions. And that seemed a little awkward for us to do, so I thought it would be better for us to have the exemption from council and then come back with the application process after that, once council has already made a decision on who that would apply to. So that would, the new resolution would then be for us to implement a user fee exemption application process for 2021. But part of that would be council giving direction to staff on who would be eligible, and then we would have the application process.
Thank you. So we can go right to the resolutions, the recommendations. Sorry, thought I heard something. Council receives the water and sewer user fee exemption report for information and discussion. Motion.
I'll move.
I'll move that.
Oh.
Second.
Second.
Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none, carried. Second is that council approves the rental site number 2 for $350 a month for the nurse practitioner until July 31st, 2022, and council will revisit. And furthermore, sorry, we'll stop there. Motion.
I'll move that.
Yep.
Second.
I'll be second.
Discussion. Has that fee been $350 from conception or?
Yes, my understanding, Councillor Mayor Baker, is that it was approved about 4 years ago, and it was due to be reviewed again in July of this year, and it's been set at $350 since its inception.
Okay, Councillor, are you good with that number, or do you believe after this amount of time there should be an increase? Councillor Polson?
I see that it's also up for approval again in July of 2022. I read that somewhere in, yes, on the recommendations. And as it stands now, we don't have any authority to raise rents because of COVID. There's a freeze on any rental increases. So I think the time to consider a raise is if that freeze is gone from July 2022.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jinsley, you concur?
I concur with that, yes, and I believe that, you know, part of the value and whether it's reassessed or not at some point, which it probably will be, is around accommodating the services as well and making it work for everyone, right? So.
All right. Okay. We have a motion, please.
I'll move that.
Second.
I'll second.
You get to pick CAO on which did which. Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. And that further, that council approves the water and sewer fee exemption for 2021 for Savored Harbor Authority on the condition that the washrooms remain available for public use. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second.
Discussion. Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. Final resolution is that R2070 be received to direct staff to return to council with proposed exemptions application process that clarifies the application for water, sewer, and other user fee exemptions to be made after having obtained approval for exemption from council. Do I have a motion? Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. Okay. And then we go on to E. Is that correct? Yes. E is for reserved and surplus 2021. Did everybody get a chance to review that?
Yes.
Okay. CAO?
Mayor Baker, I have nothing to add to this except the context for this is that I think last week we were discussing a number of items with respect to the financial plan. Council asked that staff bring back a current statement of reserves. And so what happens is that all entries are done at year end. So this is a list of our appropriated and unappropriated funds. So this lists all of our expected expenditures this year and identifies in the second to the last one estimated additions to reserves and surpluses, the 25,000, which is what we expect will be over and above all of the extra costs and revenues that are anticipated. And of course, they are anticipated at this point because we haven't received tax revenues, which is an important part of the village's financial plan. So this is a sort of an annual reserve expectation that this year we will have this much money left at the end of all of the bill paying and the collection of revenues. And I think detailed questions, I would like to request that you direct to the CFO who's prepared all of this work for us.
Thank you. So CFO, are you online? Here we go.
I am, Mr. Mayor, yes.
Thank you. General surplus. It's showing $84,532 as of December 31st, 2021. Could I get some clarification on that, please?
Yep, certainly. So basically that would just be the balance at the end of the year. So you can see at the top of the chart, you've got a December 31st, 2020 balance, basically the same as January 1st of 2021. And in that column, general surplus, I've listed all of the items that were approved in the financial plan that are sort of over and above your daily expenditures. So this isn't going to include things like office supplies and salaries and wages. This is just extra items, projects that were brought to council and approved in the financial plan. So once all of those things have been purchased and paid for, you've got total expenditures of close to 270,000. coming out of general surplus. And as the CIO mentioned, I've estimated an addition to that surplus, the 25,000. That again, as she mentioned, is just over and above daily expenditures. So typically in any fiscal year, most expenses are kept as low as possible. Staff are pretty cognizant of, staying within budget, usually under budget. So at the end of the year, there usually is a bit of a surplus that goes back into your general surplus, and that's where that estimation comes from. So the bottom number there, the 84,000, it's a combination of your opening balance less your expenditures plus the estimated addition gives you your balance at the bottom of 84,000.
Okay, so when all said and done, we have available, in case of anything else comes up, $84,000. Is that correct?
Correct, in general surplus. You also have water surplus.
Right, if
And
something comes into water, then we have water surplus. Same thing with sewer, correct, in the COVID funds.
Correct.
But basically our general surplus money in revenue or in reserves is $84,000.
At the end of the year, correct. But again, that's all dependent on what happens over the year. Let's say, in the summertime, there's a major issue that needs to be dealt with and some funds need to be spent on that issue. At that time, information would be brought to council. Council would know, okay, it's going to cost X amount of dollars for this item. Should we cancel some of these other projects that haven't yet happened to reallocate the funds to this emergency item? So, I said that in my report that at any time the financial plan can be amended depending on what's going on.
Yes.
And I think that's pretty typical in small municipalities when there's, limited funds and emergency situations happen.
Is it just me or is that number of 84,000 seem low?
I guess it's relative.
Is it relative?
Yeah, it's maybe low compared to other years, but there's quite a few items that were approved in the plan, and the majority of it is related to the dam. You can see up top there's almost 160,000 coming out of that for the dam. So, if that expense wasn't there, you'd have a bigger balance at year end.
Understood. Is council, are we doing anything or do we have any policies in place to increase that?
Sorry, was that a question for me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, from the past, do we have any, I gather we, as it says, currently the village does not have a reserve policy. So there is nothing in place to add additional funds into there as we go along. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So the first three columns, your general surplus, water surplus, sewer surplus, those are just annual surplus amounts. So
Right.
What council would probably want to do is, and that's why I've included that little chart at the end of my report, basically suggesting a timeline and some actions to rectify that situation. That yes, in fact, council does not have a reserve policy. There is a current reserve bylaw, but it's not being followed, and there's specific reserves mentioned in that bylaw that aren't actually on the financial statements. So it's a bit archaic and old, and it needs to be re-looked at and redone.
Would the rest of council agree that this is something that needs to be updated as soon as possible in terms of the bylaw and also having a reserve policy in place? Councillor Tinsley?
Sorry, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I totally agree. I think there's some major structural things, particularly around sewer, that having a policy in place will allow us to, will force us to ensure that we're appropriating funds that are set aside for that purpose. Otherwise, we're in total denial of some of those major structural things that are going to be happening.
I agree. Councillor Paulson?
I think we need to have a policy, and I think it would be effective if the staff could come back with suggestions on what to include in the policy and updating the bylaw.
Okay.
But I do
CIO?
understand that with the general surplus, and I understand the concept of that money being there and it hasn't been used yet. And the estimated 2021 balance of a surplus is like $84,000, but I know that that will change over time. So I'm not particularly concerned about, I'd be more concerned if that was negative or zero, because we
Okay,
wouldn't have anything to fall back on, or you know, the farther we get through the year, the less money we're going to have in the reserve, unless grants come through or things are accomplished with less than what's estimated for their cost.
okay. CAO, do you had a question or
I
response?
was going to say, Mayor Baker, that last week when staff brought forward the priorities for bylaws and policies, we had indicated to bring forward first the revenue policies and bylaws. So we would include this for sure on that as a priority to bring back.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, to me, it is concerning because, as was stated earlier, if we don't start putting away, whether it takes 10 years to achieve amount of money to do some of our infrastructure, or if we have that long, or 5 years, if we don't start putting away for it now, we're going to end up, I mean, who knows if we're going to get a grant large enough to cover it all, or something else happens. So if we want something in the future, we're going to have to start putting it away, in my opinion. Okay, so I just have to find where I am again. Sorry, I thought I heard something again. Okay, so that was under, is there a resolution that needs to be brought forth on that?
Yes, Mayor Baker, I was just putting my hand up for that. I think Councillor Paulson had a suggestion that staff return with suggestions to include in the policy and the bylaw. So we'll do some research on that and bring something back to, as soon as we can. So I guess the resolution would be something like council directs staff to return to council with the principles and on a reserve policy and bylaw, further information and principles.
Okay, thank you. CFO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, I just wanted to point out on page 47, I did include like a little chart
Yes.
showing the schedule and what I was proposing as far as bringing things back to council. So I don't know if you maybe want to just change the motion to read that council approves the suggested timeline provided by the CFO or something. I'm not sure. Thank you.
Everybody had an opportunity to read that?
Yep.
Okay. So I would agree. So resolution that council directs staff and with the guidelines put in the report on page 47. And sorry, CFO, you have your hand up? CAO?
Yes, go ahead with CFO's, I think, got her hand up as well. I was going to revise the resolution as the CFO suggested to say that staff return to council with the details of how the policy could describe how, when, and how much is transferred to a reserve and outline acceptable uses of reserve funds, which is exactly what the CFO's written as the note at the bottom of page 46.
And the time schedule should also be in that resolution. Is that not correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay, so let's throw the time schedule in that resolution as well. And do we have a motion on the floor, please?
I'll move that.
Councillor Paulson, would you like to second that?
I will. I would love to.
Discussion? Okay, opposed? Hearing none, carried. CFO or CAO, pardon me, you have your hand up?
Sorry, no, I do not.
No, you do not. Okay. Okay, so reserve, council, that's done. Number 13. bylaws, like council procedure bylaw, number
Sorry.
471. Sorry, CAO.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, we missed the late item, the staff report that was added as a late item.
Oh, I apologize. So let's go to the late item, please. CAO.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Baker. So this is another one that I apologize that it wasn't included in the original agenda. It required a little bit more research, but essentially this is like the others where water and sewer user exemption fee had been provided. In this case, the Village of Sayward entered into a revitalization tax exemption agreement with the owner of the Sayward Mall. And part of that agreement provided for reduced fees on the water fees. Basically, instead of charging for the 6 units, the agreement was that it would charge 3. But the terms of the agreement required that the agreement, first of all, that the reduced water user fees would be aligned with the user agreement, and that if the agreement became null and invalid, then this would no longer apply. So that agreement is now null and void, and so therefore we're required to readjust the water user fees to resume back to the 6 units, which is in fairness to all other users, what should happen now.
Agreed.
And we propose that it would be done by January 1st, effective to coincide with the beginning of the financial plan, which is when all the user fees are set.
January 1st, 2021, pardon me?
Correct, 2021.
Perfect. I agree. So do we need a resolution on that? CAO?
The resolution is that council receives the exemption for discussion and that the water and sewer user fees for the Sayward Mall revert to full charge for each of the 6 units effective January 1st, 2021.
There we go. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
And I'll second.
Do I have discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, sorry, now we'll go on to number 13, Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw 471, 2020. That Council Procedure Amendment Bylaw 471, 2021, giving fourth and final reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 474, 2021. Amendment Bylaw 474, 2021 be given first and second and third reading. Motion?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. And that the pursuit of Minister Order M192, Fees and Charges Amendment Bylaw 474, 21, be given fourth and final reading. Do I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. Tax Rate Bylaw 475, 2021. That Tax Rate Bylaw 475, 2021 be given first, second, and third reading. Do you have a motion, please?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, carried. New business? There is none. Public question period. The purpose of question period, is to permit the people in the gallery to ask questions on the issues discussed at council during the meeting. Speakers will be allowed to ask one question each. If time permits, after everyone has had the opportunity to ask a question, speaker may be allowed to ask a second question. For the record, they would state their name and address, and given the meeting is being held electronically, any questions would be submitted in writing in advance of the meeting. Adjournment. Do we have any questions? CAO? No? CFO, you have your hand up?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to point out, I believe there was a motion that was missed for the tax rates bylaw that fourth and final reading be given.
Oh, okay, thank you. Recommended resolution that the tax rate bylaw 475/2021 be given first, second, and third reading. Do I have a motion?
I'll move that.
A second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none? Carried.
So we just need to move to that next one there, because we've already voted on that, so we're just going to the next one. Sorry.
Fourth and final.
Fourth and final. That's what the CFO brought up.
Oh, I see. Thank you. A tax rate bylaw 475/2021 be given fourth and final reading. Sorry, guys. Motion?
I'll move that.
Second?
I'll second.
That's good. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none? Carried. We do the public question period in camera. None. So we have a recommended resolution that the meeting of council for May 4th, 2021 be adjourned. Do I have a motion?
Come on, Sue.
Come on, Tom. Okay, I'll look at this.
Do I have a second?
She's first. Ladies first.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried.